Hello Darts Nutz, welcome to Darts Review channel. So in this video I'm going to be having a look at the new Cuesoul Tero Plus stems and flights system. Now I've reviewed the Tero flights before. These are the AK7P, so AK7 Plus. The other version of the flights would compress down on a spring. This version does it both ways now, so if a dart hits it, the flight will push down, and if the incoming dart hits a flight already in the board, it'll push up as well. So it works in both directions now. And the name Tero, if you don't know, it comes from the words telescopic and rotating. So the stems are classed as being telescopic because of the spring which makes it move up and down. And also the flights will rotate, but they don't rotate until they've been hit. So it's not like some spinny flights where when you're holding them they feel loose and rattly. So it's not like that. So like I say, this is like an updated version of the Tero system, but you can only use the AK4P flights with the AK7P stems. They're not interchangeable with the previous system. So it's quite an engineered kind of system. The point is it a gimmick and does it actually work? So let's find out. So as you can see, they come in these boxes. The flights are a fairly big chunky cardboard box, and you get 4 flights in each box, and the stems are in these little flat boxes, and each one, as you can see, says C, D and E. I printed this off the website. So C is the 44mm, D is 47 and E is 50mm. I'm not sure if it's exactly the equivalent of a short, medium or in between medium stem, but I will compare them to that just now. And as you can see, it comes in various colours, but on the site it shows you the stem and flight in its normal setup, and then it shows you the length when it's compressed and also when it's stretched. So I'll put that up on the screen so you can study it yourself. But what I'll do now is I'll show you a close look at the stems, and then I'll try them with the flights and compare them to normal stems and flights. So I think I'll go with the green, because just in case you didn't know, green is my favourite colour. I don't think I've ever mentioned that before on this channel. And just in case you're wondering, that little thing on the top, it's just a little sticky badge, embroidered little patch. So you want something to stick on your dart shirt, there you go. Alright, so there's the 3 stems, which I suppose you could call short, in between and medium, but they definitely don't match up in that way to a normal nylon stem. There's definitely a difference, but it also depends on the way the flight sits on the stem. And if you look at the flights compared to a normal flight, these ones look as if they're actually a bit longer, but again it depends on how it sits on the stem. So if I take this in between one, put it on, and then I compare that to an in-between nylon and standard flight, the normal setup is slightly longer, so they're not going to match up in length perfectly to a normal setup. But anyway, let's go on back to these. I'll pull this off again. It's quite a tight fit. I can't get it off now. No, forget that, I'll just go back to this one. So as you can see, it's similar to what the previous Tero ones are that I reviewed, but this time this section in the middle has got a spring either side which allows it to compress and also stretch. It's got this carbon rod which goes through the middle, and when you put this flight on, there's obviously something in there which grabs into that middle section and locks it into place, and then it just allows it to spring up and down. Now the idea behind it is, I guess, if you've got a dart in the board and an incoming dart hits the flight, then it springs inwards, and the flight on the dart that's coming in will stretch outwards. So I think the principle is that that will cause less bounce outs, but who knows, it may even cause more. But they'll also rotate. They won't spin freely because the spring's kind of holding it in place, but obviously on impact it will rotate. Again, that's meant to do two things: cause less deflections, and also supposedly to help prolong the life of the flight. So that's the principle behind the idea. Whether or not it works in practice is another matter. But I have to say, I wasn't that keen on the original Teros. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just that I didn't think my darts flew quite right with them. Other people said they like them. And I preferred the Rost, actually. The Rost with the all-in-ones. And the Rost seemed to suit my throw and my darts better. But we'll see how these go. Alright, I'm just going to weigh the stems and flights. So that's the short version, 1.77 grams, and the in between, 1.84 grams, and the medium, 1.9 grams. So not a complete equivalent, but near enough. Basic nylon and normal flight in short, that's 1.55 grams. In between, 1.84 grams, and medium, 2.05 grams. So that is actually more than the biggest one there. Surprising that. There you go. Oh, treble 5 champion. I'm just gonna have a few little throws here just to explain something, and then I'll do a little compilation of whatever I hit. But in the past, when you used to get like spinny flights, stems, whatever, sometimes they would spin so freely they'd be really annoying, and it was one of the reasons why I used to hate spinny flights, and I think a lot of people hate them for the same reason. Treble 1 champion. But with these, because it's got that kind of a spring on the shaft, the flights are not spinning like freely, and whatever you're doing with your throw, holding it hands, moving it around, bringing it up from there up to throw, and then letting go, as you're doing all that motion with some that spin freely, as you're going through that motion, sometimes you would hear something rattling or feeling loose, and it was quite irritating. But you don't get any of that with these. So for all intents and purposes, until I've released the dart, it just feels like a normal solid stem and flight. There's nothing to tell me basically that I'm throwing a spinny stem and flight. That's not in, is it? Oh no, it isn't. 140. But one thing that I did notice with the first generation, and I think it did put me off a little bit, was as soon as I let go of the dart, it made quite an annoying sound. Not all the time, but when it did, it was quite annoying. These ones still make hit, but not quite as bad. And I think it's because it's got the double spring with the little plastic thing in. Now what I think is happening, I tend to naturally spin my dart. So as soon as I've let go, I think what is happening is the barrel is spinning like that, and it's that what is making the sound somewhere along here. Sometimes the flights are spinning as well, but I don't think the flights are spinning as much as what they would if it wasn't a free spinning flight. And I think what I'm basically hearing is that sound of the barrel whirling around inside there, and it is a little bit annoying. But like I said, I don't notice it quite as much with this version as I did with the other version. So that's a good thing, I guess. But I do notice it more when I've clipped my chin. And I think I don't clip my chin quite as often as I used to. Up back when I was reviewing the first version, I would spring it there and I would get like the kind of a springy sound as well if I hit my chin. I'm not noticing that quite as much on this version, so maybe it's eliminated that as well. But the actual feel of the setup feels quite nice. I'm only like a few throws, but feels fine. I'm not going to mess about throwing them anymore, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to throw them for about 10 minutes or so, and then I'll put a compilation up of all the ones where they've made contact. So I'll do that, and then I'll do a slow motion of them going through the air, and I'm going to try if possible to catch a close-up slow motion of it's doing its thing. I'm not sure if I can or not, but I'll give it a try. So there you go, that's the Cuesoul Tero Plus flight and shaft system. I actually started this review over 6 weeks ago, so what you've seen previously I've done over a few weeks. So I've actually been using them fairly regular for about 2 weeks now. I had maybe 6 to 8 hours. They do actually seem to work quite nice with these darts, and overall I definitely prefer this version to the old version. But it's really difficult to determine whether they're actually doing any better than a normal stem or flight. Sometimes the dart will be in the board, the incoming dart will hit it, I'll see the flight spin, and the dart will just go into the board. And I think, well, has it actually helped, or was it just giving it a little flick as it went by? I'm not sure whether I've seen the actual springy part in action. There's a few times when I think I've seen it, and there was also a few times when my darts come in like that and it kind of like excessively sprung off, and I don't know if that was the action of this moving up and down causing that, or whether it was just the way I threw the dart. Like I say, it's hard to determine. So what I can do is in 3 or 4 months time I'll do an update of how I'm getting on. But normally I would tell people to give something like this a try, just to see whether it's something you like or not. But that's where the main problem is, and that's the price. It's really hard to tell people to do that when they're so expensive. I think I worked it out that for the price of these you can get maybe around 40 or 50 normal stems and flights. So if these last longer than that amount of stems and flights, then yeah, it's worth it. But you're gonna have to take a chance, and it's too pricey to do that, I think. I do think the stems are really strong and robust, and they're kind of protected by the flight, so I can't guarantee it, but I do think the stems are likely going to last quite a while. You'd need a really heavy impact, I think, to break them, and I think if it hits the floor like that, the springiness is kind of acting like a shock absorber as well, so that's taken some of the impact away. How long the flight's going to last, difficult to say. There's a little bit of ragginess on them, but no splits or tears so far. So what I'll do, like I said, I'll update in maybe 3 or 4 months time, and we'll have a better idea by then. So that's the end of the review. I'll leave you with the gallery. I'll see you on the next one. Happy darting.